me a little bit about your background.
When you Google my name, you might see rumors that I beat my ex-wife and I'm also a pedophile, but that could be an issue. Should mention I'm also a felon.
Okay. What's the nature of your felony?
Aggravated assault.
How old is it?
About 2 years. I mean,
be real with me.
I'm getting recommended this channel, so this is Middle Nation. Join Shahid Bolsen, the leading political commentator on global Muslim affairs. It's a pretty big deal. What got my attention was this video, Egypt's handling of colonizer activists, referring to the global march to Gaza. He's basically smearing the entire convoy. What the Israelis said about the Medellin, calling it a selfie yacht, that's basically what he's saying about the 1,000+ people that are trying to get into Gaza right now in Egypt. And here's a little taste of what he's like.
This is a colonizer organization. It maybe wasn't from the beginning, but that's what it evolved into. That's what it morphed into. Now it is a colonizer institution, a colonizer organization.
He does a lot of repeating himself, but let's do a quick fact check. Is your goal to forcibly enter Gaza? Absolutely not. We have always been clear, the global march to Gaza is a peaceful movement. We will not force any barrier, any border. We aim to negotiate the opening of the Rafah terminal with the Egyptian authorities in collaboration with NGOs, diplomats, and humanitarian institutions. It seems like everything that you could possibly do to legally go through with this. What if you are stopped or turned back at the border? We are taking all necessary legal and diplomatic precautions. A legal team with international law attorneys is mobilized to anticipate all scenarios, but our strength lies in our visibility and negotiations with embassies. If thousands of peaceful citizens are turned back or arrested, the entire world will know. This would create unprecedented pressure and severely damage the country's image. And that would be on Egypt for not standing with the Palestinians, not allowing the absolute minimum, which is just people standing in solidarity, not getting an aid or anything like that, just trying to stop people from being massacred. And they were bringing supplies, not much, but it was something. And this guy has the audacity to smear them as colonizers. Let's pull up the route. It's not just people from the West or European countries. They're picking up people all along this route. The group is coordinating with activists from 50 countries who are flying into Cairo on Thursday to march to Gaza together. And from Tunisia to Tripoli to Cairo, people traveled. 1,000 colonizers? Really? It is a gross claim.
So I'm glad what happened. Don't do it again. If you want to do something, even though I can't personally stand that Greta Thunberg, if you want to do something, do a flotilla where you're putting all of the attention on Israel, put all of the attention on the one who's perpetuating the genocide and who is actually enforcing the siege of Gaza. Don't put it on our governments.
What would happen if they continued to do... I mean, one flotilla is getting raided. Francesca Albanese called for 1,000 ships at once. I love that. That's being worked on. So in the meantime, you want to smear the people that are going on foot? What, because they didn't go through Israel? How would people from these Arab countries even get into Israel? That's what I want to know. I don't think they would be able to. Because you're breaking the law in Egypt, which is supposed to not matter.
Because you're breaking the law in Egypt, which is... They're not the ones who are preventing it. And that's not why they're arresting you. They're arresting you because you're breaking the law in Egypt, which is supposed to not matter.
They care about the law in Egypt. If you cared about legality in Egypt, if you cared about Egyptian law, you would care that one of the organizers was kidnapped from his Cairo hotel room. Not rattling the gates of Gaza, trying to snatch his passport back. He was kidnapped by plainclothes officers from his Cairo hotel room in the middle of the night. His wife was deported. Put on a plane. They don't know where he is. Where's the outcry over that? You just must not care or see what's actually happening. You just look at headlines and just react to them. Just start yammering.
And because even what you're saying now, right now, is nefarious, what you're saying. You're trying to put responsibility on Egypt for what Egypt isn't responsible for, rather than putting it on Israel. Really, these are diabolical people.
It's been said.
I don't care about your, like I said this in the chat and I've said it many times. I don't recognize your so-called compassion, your so-called caring for the Palestinians, when if you actually cared, then you would have you would do the basic thing of educating yourself about the region, educating yourself about the issue, so you actually understand.
Who's in the background? Who's just going like,
Your useful idiots are no longer useful to you.
Yeah, but I have to point out that the kind of really, the complete, how little you think of Muslims. That this guy, who clearly does
oh, he's married. He has a wife. I forgot.
not identify or claim to be Muslim, but is invoking Islam and one's iman into getting the guts to acquiesce. Like, you think that if you just, it's the Islamic people. Like they care. I care about them. I have them in my heart. As if
I'm having trouble relating to the like spiritual element of this. I'm not Muslim. It seems like your solidarity is misplaced if you are smearing people who are trying to stand in solidarity with Palestinians. He doesn't actually care about Egyptian law. He's got weird titles. He wants to do like play on words. Absolute mal ice. It's giving like a Christian guy who likes to ramble, but he's Muslim. I've seen these like Bible study YouTube channels where they'll kind of say, oh, well, you need to do your Bible studying with me so that we can interpret the text together and have a whole podcast about it. That's neither here nor there. Possibilities and plausibilities in Palestine. Lies, logos, luxury, and the path to neighborhood sovereignty. I did want to watch this one anyway. The controversial history. This is where I really want to... This is like the meat of it. Because also...
I think it's fair to say that there's quite a lot of rather shocking material about you online. I mean, people may come across your comments.
Again, this is all just one guy. Like, he's not being interviewed by anyone. He's just kind of making himself seem important, I guess. Let's do our due diligence. Let's look him up. This is what happens when you Google him. You have a biography here. Let's go to the biography. So when you click on it, here's his website /biography. Hang on. All little logos in the way. I wanted to go on Reddit to kind of like put my finger up to the wind to see what other people were saying about him. What's your opinion of YouTuber Shahid Bolsen? He is a murderer who used a fake profile on social media pretending to be a woman in order to get a German engineer Martin Herbert Steiner to come to his house in Dubai. Whoa. Whoa, 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 whoa. What the fuck? I wanted to look into that. So I looked up detained in Dubai. This is something that he references in his biography. After presenting his case in court in Abu Dhabi, he began working with the human rights group detained in Dubai, assisting victims of injustice and legal abuse in the United Arab Emirates. So we look up detained in Dubai, and Shahid Bolsen is one of the people on their controversial partnerships and cases. Shahid King Bolsen became involved with the company after Detained in Dubai took up his case in 2012. Bolsen admitted to killing a German engineer he met online in 2006 and escaped from prison. Citation needed. Okay, fair. A citation is needed for that. Bolsen has been accused of inciting violence against Americans and American businesses in Egypt as recently as 2015, which he denied in an interview with Sterling. According to the New York Times, Bolsen is quoted as saying, "The idea is disruption without bloodshed. I condemn the loss of life and the use of violence against people." But he added, "If a few lives are lost to help prevent needless deaths at the hands of security forces, sometimes it is a price to be paid." Bolsen claims that the question was focused on property damage, not the loss of life. Okay, so let's hear it from him. Early life, born in the United States. By the way, he definitely wrote this himself, and he really talks highly of himself, is a controversial figure, but has nevertheless emerged as one of the most unique and influential public intellectuals of the Muslim world. Islam is like the largest religion on earth, right? How can he say that? I can just call bullshit from here. Like, I'm comfortable saying that he's nowhere near as influential as he claims. Even as a child, though, Shahid said he was disturbed by the gap between the rich and poor in America and the materialistic lifestyle, which he felt devalued human life. The most basic he discovered empathy. Cool. He attended local high school and was fascinated with the works of Mahatma Gandhi and Martin Luther King Jr. and spent hours at the library reading. Eventually, he dropped out of school and spent all his time at the library. Shannon was not a troubled youth. Shannon was his name before he changed it. He was very critical of America's consumerism and would always find a way of mocking it, his brother said. As he grew older, he began to be more active in practicing those philosophies, getting involved in social work, helping homeless people, worked as a caseworker for indignant families, and as a crisis intervention counselor in gang neighborhoods. Through all of his work, his family said, Bolsen continued to search for a spiritual direction that fitted with his views on justice. In the mid-90s, Shahid was attending university after completing his GED and took a class on African American studies. In the course, he was required to read the autobiography of Malcolm X, which spurred him to begin researching Islam. At that time, Shahid recalls, I'd been looking into many it's so funny to like quote himself when he's writing it himself, but okay. Let's say he's not writing it himself. Just like put that in our pocket. We're not being charitable enough, okay? Once I began researching Islam, I simply recognized that this was not only the truth, but in fact, it was what I already believed. I had just never had a name for it. The dude would have written the Quran had he not stumbled across a copy. Jesus Christ, what a narcissist. He was doing activism, traveled to London, he gave talks on Palestine. In 2003, he relocated to the Middle East along his wife and their 3 children. How nice. The trial in 2006, a disaster, started in Shahid's life when he was confronted by a tragic and catastrophic event. After encountering an online profile of a German man in Dubai seeking illicit relationships with local women, Shahid invited the man to his home with the intention of persuading him against such behavior, but the man was inebriated and the meeting became hostile. The man tried to force himself sexually on the family housemaid, and a struggle ensued, leading to the unexpected death of the German. Hold the fucking phone, dude. What the fuck? Hello? Not what we saw on Reddit being absolutely true. He murdered... Okay, He used a fake profile on social media pretending to be a woman in order to get a German engineer margin. He was just doing that so that he could attract people who were spiritually lost. You know what I mean? Because that's his business. That's what he's here to do. That's what God put him on his earth to do. His real name is Shannon Morris and was born and raised in the USA. He murdered Martin Herbert Steiner with chloroform in his house. He faked social media profile pretending to be a woman to get Steiner to come to his house. He put Steiner's body in the suitcase and tried to run away to Oman in Steiner's car with his passport. Meanwhile, he used Steiner's credit card to buy electronics worth $20K. He was sentenced to death in 2007, but someone paid $55K to release him, unfortunately. The guy is a radical Islamist, and it's okay. The first website is a well-known scam site. The national UAE is based on poor sourcing, promotion of state propaganda, lack of transparency, and censorship. It exhibits one or more of the following: extreme bias, consistent promotion of propaganda conspiracies, poor or no sourcing to credible information, a complete lack of transparency, and or is fake news. You are not even Muslim. Stop with the fake nonsense. Okay, well, yeah, okay, let's put that to the side. Here's someone completely different. Shahid King Bolsen is a murderer and a killer who murdered an innocent German man in UAE with lethal injection and took his credit card and went shopping for electronics. UAE courts show clearly his admission, and he was justifying the killing by simply said he was trying to control the victim, not killing him. Here's another question I have. If you were going to do that and try to spiritually intervene, have an intervention with a stranger, weird. That dude probably would not have come over if you were using a profile that was legitimate, you know? So something doesn't add up here. A disaster started in Shahid's life when he was confronted by a tragic and catastrophic event, like he couldn't avoid it. After encountering an online profile of a German man in Dubai seeking illicit relationships with local women. Okay, now who's trying to impose morals? The man tried to force himself sexually on the family housemaid. Okay, if you knew that you were going to do this, why did you have your staff on the premises? He was detained for 7 years on death row in Sharjah's central jail without having access to legal representation in order to tell his side of the story or present evidences. That's fucked up. I mean, it's he said, she said. You killed him, right? You'd have to let somebody go based on a lack of evidence, but I don't know, man. That's really fucked up. That man would not have even been around you had you just not been trying to encounter online profiles of German men in Dubai seeking illicit relationships with local women. That doesn't sound like your business at all. Eventually, after presenting his case in court to Abu Dhabi, his sentence was overturned by the Supreme Court of the UAE. Bolsen was found not being guilty of murder, but was charged with accidental manslaughter on appeal and was ordered to pay dia, blood money compensation to the family of the deceased. He was finally released from prison in 2013. So it sounds like you did your time, you paid for it, and now you're trying to start a new life. Settled in Istanbul, Shahid returned to writing and activism. He began to write about a variety of topics, but his focus was on Egypt and the Arab Spring. This writing garnered the appreciation of many factions from the Egyptian opposition, but the ire of the Egyptian government and the Western mainstream media, which maliciously labeled him as a violent extremist, despite the fact that the strategies he advocated were all non-violent and rooted in traditional forms of civil disobedience. He rapidly built a following on social media platforms. He quotes, "I began to post my ideas on Facebook since autumn 2013 with enough content to fill 10 books. Meanwhile, after years of productivity, we can be deleted in the blink of an eye." Oh my God. He gave a "Why I'm Leaving Facebook" post. Go. No one cares. Keep a diary. It's not Facebook's responsibility to keep track of your personal thoughts. You're allowed to be on a social media platform if you abide by the rules of the platform. Full stop. Simple. No one cares. The impact of your posts is subject to algorithmic discrimination, manipulation, and arbitrariness, not to mention being sandwiched between frivolous posts of cats falling off countertops and memes of SpongeBob. It is a platform that degrades, not uplifts discourse. What did you think it was? As a result of this, many disturbing articles and material come out of web searches discrediting and defaming him. However, Shahid has always kept a clear position in remaining against the promotion of violence or terrorism and denies any affiliations with groups like ISIS or the Egyptian Muslim Brotherhood, both of which he has consistently criticized. Upon moving to Malaysia, Shahid became a strategist and advisor with the human rights campaigns supporting the Rohingyas. Shahid continues to work as a PR strategist and legal consultant for NGOs, human rights groups, and politicians globally. Oh. He's a consultant for NGOs. In June 2021, he created a social media channel named Quawamoon, primarily to refute the concepts promoted by the Red Pillars, Rollo Tamasi, and their ilk, and to promote healthier and more Islamic correct views on masculinity and gender relations. Oh, good. I'm glad you're here to give us all the answers about that. By the end of the year, the channel was rebranded The Middle Nation in order to fulfill a much broader goal and wider array of issues than the narrow spectrum of the previous channel. Trying to really grift on the centrists, you know? I honestly don't know what he's trying to achieve. It seems like a vanity project. His entire channel just seems like a vanity project. The Trial, The Middle Nation. Oh my gosh. There's a biopic about him? These are just videos he's made. These are all from his channel. Who's this goofy ass? Like, look at this dude. Couple of thoughts. Around 3:30 mentions passport pros bringing women back to the U.S. as an inevitable case of women becoming westernized. This hasn't been the case for myself and several brothers I know who married in traditional Muslim countries. I heavily agree with the last part. My own mother as a housewife, while my father earns around 40K. We as a family of 6 lived comfortably in the U.S. The problem with these modern Muslim women is indeed their materialistic desires and their boomer idiotic parents pushing them towards dunya satisfaction rather than Islamic teachings. I guess, like most religions, there doesn't seem to be a monolith. There doesn't seem to be a across-the-board consensus. So this project of trying to tell Muslims how to be Muslim is going to be a lifelong exercise in futility. I'm telling you, dude. I've been seeing this man everywhere. I know that Brother DH has criticized him. I don't know who Brother DH is. A Muslim content creator has criticized him and even accused him of some serious things. He is well-spoken, no doubt, but there is something just off about him. I don't think he's well-spoken. I think he rambles and says the same thing over and over again, just with different rhetoric. On his YouTube, he speaks very comfortably about issues with the West, but I don't understand why with some topics. You might almost label him a Madkali? What is that? Okay, is a strain of Salafism characterized by quietism and loyalty to existing secular and authoritarian governments, particularly in the Arab world. This tweet of his, everything was fine and dandy with his words, but when he talked about Mahdi's army and the Khalifa, it sounds weird, and I mean really weird. I don't want to judge him harshly, I just hope you guys could provide some insight. Too many of us have got jihad in our heads, so we think if we are not storming an Israeli checkpoint with an AK and making takbir, and none of us are going to do that, we lack any imagination about how to be genuinely useful where we are, with whatever skills we have. That seems harsh and doomerist for no reason. In response to another topic, I wrote to a brother, while somewhat tangential to the main point in my comment, I understand that you might be following a channel called Middle Nation, where you listen to brother Shahid Bolsen. I neither endorse him nor encourage others to watch his channel. His speeches are philosophical in nature, and he has made some very odd claims that no Ahlus Sunnah scholar has made before. For instance, he once stated, "As far as I am concerned, your soul and Akira are your problems," and further claimed that he won't be held accountable for the actions of others. Well, I somewhat get his point, but he contradicts some Shari evidences. Messenger of Allah. Okay, this is just quoting the Quran now. That's why I don't promote lay people and even students of knowledge, but instead encourage others to learn from scholars when it comes to the 8 sciences of Sharia. Many lay people, and even most students of knowledge, engage in matters not truly aligned with what Muslims should learn. While our love for Muslims is unwavering and we appreciate actions undertaken for Allah's sake, it's not advisable for Muslims to follow them in everything they do. I will defend Muslims when they're unjustly criticized or falsely accused, but that's the extent of it. I would even correct others when they go overboard with their criticisms against misguided individuals or sects. This certainly doesn't mean I'm defending them. Criticism should be fair, even towards those with whom you disagree. This sentiment mirrors some of the works or lectures I've referenced in my articles. He goes on to say, "May I take this as confirmation to advise my fellow lay people not to listen to him, or at the very least consider his speeches with caution? Lay people should learn from scholars, and if that's not possible, then from advanced students of knowledge. Brother Shahid does not fall into the category of a student of knowledge." Well said. Another post about him. He's right on the criticism of Western civilization, racism, bigotry, and so on, but I feel he ultimately comes at it from a perspective of Islam, and that's where he doesn't apply the same standard to the Middle East or Islamic history. So slavery, for example, was an important part of history, and while it's true Muslims treated their slaves better than Europeans, that doesn't justify slavery, but to him, it wasn't that bad because they were treated better than the Europeans. He also doesn't seem to have a coherent idea of what a political system or an economic system should be. Islamic economics is not a thing. It's a mixture of principles like no exploitation, no interest, no selling alcohol, and there's rules of how contracts should be handled. But that's contract law, not economics, and Islamic economics is just a way to curtail exploitation in a mercantile economy. It's not something applicable to modern economics, but to him, things like Islamic economics are ideal, but such a thing doesn't exist. Okay. He's a convicted killer and a con artist. Look into his history further. His real name is Shannon Morris. Dude cannot escape the "he's a murderer" allegations and propagandist allegations. This guy is nothing more than a UAE propagandist. He has no credentials or credibility. All we know about him is that he is convicted for the murder of a German engineer and that he escaped prison. What? He escaped prison, huh? He came out of nowhere and started making videos where he pretended to be interviewed by someone. We can find better people to promote Islam. So he is pretending to be interviewed by someone. That's nuts. I mean, if it's not his wife, who sounded real, to be fair, then it must be AI.
The poor and the oppressed.
It sounds like he's doing a Malcolm X impression, and it's cringeworthy.
Emotional or ideological, but they tend to be the most emotional and the most ideological. And I think this is probably symptomatic of feeling powerless, in my opinion. And I think at least partially this feeling of powerlessness stems from ignorance about the systems of power that oppress them. They don't understand how the system works. It's opaque, it's confusing, it's complicated, and seemingly impossible to actually dissect or dismantle. So people fall into this simplistic emotional responses, ideological responses. But the truth is that of all the people in the world, the poor and the oppressed most need objectivity. They most need critical thinking, strategic thinking, realism, and so on.
Okay, boring.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
This is what you get when you click on the video "Who is behind the Middle Nation channel?" Very dramatic. Oh, he hired someone for this. You bet your ass. Quoting himself again. Dude might be like a psychopath.
شهيد بولسن يا جماعة.
Sociopath con artist.
Shahid Bolsen. Shahid Bolsen.
Oh, damn, he knocked the bag off. He needs to get a better clip. He needs a better carabiner. Knocked the bag off.
Shahid Bolsen.
Punching bag probably weighs like 60 to 80 pounds. You're gonna pick it up off the floor every time you want to look tough? It's just stupid to knock your bag off the thing. I bet speed could take you. I showed speed could tap you in 2 seconds, I bet.
Allahu Akbar. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen.
We're disasters. Whoa. What? Death row. Tortured, threatened, and extrajudicial killing. Person was forced to sign confession. Arabic? Oh, an accidental death. Bolsen cause. The dude is basically Abu Zubaydah. That's who he thinks he is. Except he's better because he escaped. You did some kind of deal where you paid the daya or dia or blood money. You got recruited by this organization, basically.
7 years on death row in Sharjah Central Jail.
Darling sweetheart plea deal.
My sentence was overturned by the Supreme Court of the UAE, and I was ordered to pay dia and released finally from prison.
The charade of democratic elections can never give legitimacy to this process, can never give legitimacy to the coup, can never give legitimacy to Sisi.
Who is he talking to, you know?
And it can never give validity to the domination of foreign influence in Egypt and the undermining of Egypt's sovereignty.
You're just downloading. I'm in. I know everything about this guy now. All this reading shit, you know? I gotta get like him and just read headlines and just react, you know?
We're talking about serious criminal conduct by the potential collusion of high-ranking American and international officials. We've uncovered details about the regime that will completely shatter the UAE's image internationally, but could also profoundly affect and alter American and European foreign policy towards the Emirates.
He wants somebody to make a documentary about him so bad.
All that I ever wrote about Egypt, all that I ever said about Egypt, was specifically to avert the possibility of Egypt falling into a violent jihad and insurrection and turning Egypt into another Syria.
Now, America's Islamophobia could easily allow someone like this to take strong footing in that he's, you know, he's Muslim. He could just be smeared and written off. He's probably experienced that. I have no doubt. But that doesn't mean everything that he says is sacrosanct, though. Dude is treating his life like a movie and he's the main character.
We're concerned about the helpless people who are being slaughtered, supposedly in response to an insurgency, suffering collective punishment.
I've seen rappers make content about themselves that aren't this narcissistic, you know?
Which again is a war crime.
Foreign corporations, foreign multinational.
I don't think Michael Rappaport takes himself this seriously.
corporations wielding their influence to get what they want. There's no question that they have the power and the influence to get what they want. We need them to start using it to get what we want.
We Are All Rohingya Now campaign is reaching out to multinational corporations to take a stand against the ethnic cleansing and persecution of the Rohingya in Myanmar and to call for a restoration of their citizenship.
The strategy of silence is just going to lose you more and more business. The longer you remain silent, the more customers you're going to lose.
Wow. Incredible.
I think it's fair to say that there's quite a lot of rather shocking material about you online.
The filter
I
is
mean,
so
people may
cringe.
come across your commentaries and want to find out more about you. But a quick Google search of your name will undoubtedly leave them, shall we say, uneasy, to say the least.
For sure, I understand that. A quick Google search of my name leaves me uneasy, to say the least. I mean, if that's how you feel about it, how do you think I feel about it? What can I do?
Well, would you not like to address that at all? Because, let's be honest, your background is rather alarming. I mean, someone might be inclined towards your analysis, only to then discover some of these articles, and it makes them want to run in the opposite direction.
Sure. Yeah, it would make them want to run in the opposite direction, which is one of the reasons why those articles and that material was produced in the first place. Precisely to discredit me and to make people run in the opposite.
I think the stuff that you put in your own bio could make people run in the other direction. What are you talking about?
Direction of me, because most of that material was written at the same time when I was advocating a strategy in Egypt for the opposition that would help to prevent Egypt plunging into civil war. Because I don't know if you remember, but back in those days,
no one in Egypt knows what's going to happen next. It could go anyway.
Shortly after the coup took place, and shortly after the massacre at Rabaa,
We have someone from killers, just killers.
there was, and this was simultaneous to when ISIS was becoming very prominent in Syria, and there was actually a lot of sympathy for ISIS among Egyptian opposition activists, and calls for jihad in Egypt. People going to Sinai and taking up arms and doing all sorts of things and thinking that they wanted ISIS to come to Cairo.
U.S. counterterrorism official tells CNN, Wilayat Sinai is one of ISIS's most active and potent affiliates. The official says they pledged their allegiance to ISIS last year and have adopted ISIS's branding and brutal tactics.
So at that time, I was advocating strategies that were really inspired by the American labor movement, in the early days of the American labor movement, and to a certain extent by the anti-globalization movement of the late 1990s, early 2000s. And I was advocating nonviolent disruption of corporate interests, disruption of business interests, and specifically and explicitly and repeatedly
What about the guy you killed?
warned against violence, warned against bloodshed. Our slogan at that time was no justice, no profit. Not no justice, no peace. We rearranged that slogan from no justice, no peace to no justice, no profit. That was specifically and exclusively
What a dog shit mantra.
being targeted by the strategies that I advocated. It was the profitability and the operational efficiency of multinational corporations in Egypt. Bloodless, disruption without bloodshed was the mantra. And it was effective, even though there was very, very limited mobilization among activists who were interested in my ideas. Because I have to be very clear, I was not in communication with any militant or any opposition groups on the ground, any organized set of groups on the ground at all. I just wrote on Facebook and some people liked what I wrote. The only thing that I was involved in directly was basically letter writing campaigns.
I don't think anybody was accusing you of being part of opposition. I think people think that you are controlled opposition. Dude, the padding is crazy. Talk about when you killed a dude.
Okay, but wouldn't you at least like to tell your side of the story? At least in terms of the murder case in the UAE? I think that
Finally, we're fucking
part of your
8
history is
minutes
probably
into
what people
it.
find the most disturbing.
Well, okay. In terms of the murder case in the UAE, I did tell my side of the story, and I told it when and where and to whom it mattered, which was the court in Abu Dhabi, the Supreme Court. And that was after more than 7 years of not being able to give my side of the story to anyone. I wasn't able to meet with an attorney. I wasn't able to present any evidence in court. I wasn't able to testify. And then finally, after 7 years on death row, I was finally able to present my side of the story in court to the judge, to a panel of judges, and they reached their verdict, which was I was guilty of a crime, but not that crime. So I was sentenced according to manslaughter, which was appropriate. Had I been guilty of murder, I wouldn't be here today. I would have been executed. I had 2 friends of mine who were executed while I was in prison. So it's not as if the UAE is particularly lenient.
Okay. Dude, let's go back to those sources. Talk about him escaping detained in Doha in the national news. Oh, an expat facing execution in Sharjah for the murder of a German engineer has sent a message to his victims' relatives urging them to take solace from the fact that the man's death was not premeditated. Muslim convert Shahid Bolsen from the U.S. killed 58-year-old Martin Sherbert Steiner in 2006 with a lethal dose of the powerful anesthetic chloroform? Huh? Bro, why do you have chloroform? Bolsen and his Ethiopian maid were accused of luring married Steiner to Bolsen's Sharjah home with promises of sex. He claimed Steiner got aggressive and he administered the lethal drug to stop him. In his battle to avoid the firing squad, Bolsen, a father of 4, made an emotional statement in which he admitted his crime but claims it was unintentional, saying, "I'm not guilty of murder, I'm not a threat to society." How blubbering did he get for people to be like, alright, dude, jeez. Radha Sterling, for the London-based Detained in Dubai, which has taken up Bolsen's case, said it has written to the courts to ask for the death penalty to be overturned. She said, "No court can be 100% certain of whether Shahid is guilty of murder or whether it is manslaughter. If the charges are reduced to manslaughter, Shahid will not face death. He has a wife and 4 children, and we urge the courts to review the sentence." The gaslighting defense. No court can be 100% certain of what happened. We know that he had chloroform. Is that not premeditated? Is catfishing him with a fake profile not premeditated? Is having a syringe of chloroform not premeditated? Jesus fuck. Claimed from his cell in Sharjah prison that Steiner's death was, quote, unexpected, as he attempts to avoid the death penalty by having his crime reduced to manslaughter. But Bolsen claims he was merely trying to talk him out of their sinful ways. That's not your business. Bolsen said he had the drug in his house to help him sleep. Use chloroform to help yourself sleep? The maid later claimed Bolsen told her to thank Allah for an infidel is dead. Bolsen admitted bundling Steiner's body into a blue suitcase and putting it in the boot of his victim's Mazda car. He started to flee the country, but before the Data 4 got to the Oman border, he had second thoughts, so he dumped the suitcase at the side of the Dubai Hatta Road and went back to Sharjah. He went on a DHS 2000 spending spree with Steiner's credit card. After confessing to the killing, Bolsen took the police to the body and was eventually sentenced to death in 2007. He's still trying to plead the case of manslaughter to escape the firing squad and has enlisted the help of justice organization Detained in Dubai to campaign for him. Wow. Yeah, here's yet another. But Bolsen, police say, was not confident he would make it over the Omani border, so he parked on the Dubai Hatta Road and dragged a suitcase weighing more than he did behind a bush. After covering it with a tarpaulin and some dirt, he drove away, returning to Sharjah. Within days, he would be under arrest. Wow. No way. Miles behind Bolsen were his wife, his 3 children, and a crime scene. He was heading to Oman on June 4th. Oh my god, dude. Nothing more than a UAE propagandist. But how did he become a UAE propagandist? Because that was literally the only people who were in his corner. He became an asset to them. It's the only place he could get a job. This is kind of funny. This is him talking to an AI.
And to drop back in. What's on your mind today?
Brother Shahid tested the new Sesame AI and concluded that it is little more than a data and information extraction tool for Sesame rather than a learning or productivity tool for users. The AI seemed triggered, ultimately cutting the call short.
Do you have any recollection of what we just talked about?
Oh, you mean like 5 whole days ago? My memory's not quite that long. It's more like a couple of weeks for me.
Okay, well, five days is within a couple of weeks, but that's fine.
How lonely are you? AI demo has a limit of about 15 minutes. The AI didn't end the call because it was put in a bad situation. It did that because the time ran out. AI certainly has its problems, from social to ethical, but spreading misinformation and making it seem like something else cause the outcome is simply not true. If you want to form a valid opinion and point out the flaws in this whole AI thing, you have to accept your own flaws and stay true to yourself. Be real and really analyzing the whole situation. Saying the AI seems triggered, ultimately cutting the call short, is simply not true. If you want to change the world for the better, then you have to be the one doing everything by the book. If you find yourself using the very methods of disinformation and propaganda that you claim to oppose, then that doesn't make you any different than the person you call your enemy. I know that this is just about AI, but this is so cogent to all of the misinformation he spreads, all the smearing that he does. It's totally inappropriate. Freedom of speech. Oh, Sesame AI is a fantastic word salad program. It was painful to listen to, my goodness.
Rafah border in an effort to force open the crossing for humanitarian aid. What are your thoughts on the march?
It's important to clarify that the global march to Gaza is not a protest against Egypt, nor has it ever been framed as such. Each national delegation, now representing over 54 countries, comes bearing the weight of their own government's complicity, silence, or inaction in the face of an ongoing genocide in Gaza. We are not here to confront Egypt, but to appeal to it as the only viable humanitarian corridor currently available to international civil society. Israel would never allow such a march to take place within its borders. This is the reality of geopolitical access, not a reflection of any ideological alignment with or against Egypt. The claim that the march implies Egypt is Zionist is not only factually inaccurate, it is deeply regrettable. It distracts from the real objective to mobilize global pressure on Israel through our own governments, institutions, and international alliances. Our message is not directed at Egypt, but at Israel and those who enable or tolerate its actions through inaction. This march is not composed solely of Western or so-called colonial activists. It includes voices from across the global South, with broad representation from Arab, African, and Muslim countries, many of whom have experienced colonialism, occupation, and oppression firsthand. They are not here to impose anything, but to stand in solidarity, to bear witness, and to amplify the cry of the Palestinian people. Yes, we care for Gaza. That is precisely why we are marching, not against Egypt, but with the hope that its people and institutions recognize this global, peaceful appeal to uphold human rights, humanitarian access, and international law. Because what is at stake in Gaza today goes beyond borders. When the laws meant to protect civilians in war are ignored without consequences, no one is truly safe. Not today, not tomorrow. If we allow this to happen in silence, it could be your children, my children, any of us next. We march not to accuse, but to insist. Justice, dignity, and protection must be universal, or they are nothing at all. We stood on the side of justice. We did not remain silent. We tried. I'm going to go back to this. But our strength lies in our visibility and negotiations with embassies. If thousands of peaceful citizens are turned back or arrested, the entire world will know. This will create unprecedented pressure and severely damage the country's image. The global march to Gaza is on the right side of history. This fucking guy is not.
What are your thoughts on the march?
Because it seems to me that the real intention here, quite clearly, is to antagonize and destabilize Egypt. So why are you basically targeting Egypt instead of targeting Israel? That's strange to me.
I'm glad what happened. They treated them with kid gloves as far as I'm concerned. All we want to do, they're starving. We just want to deliver, but they're not the ones who are preventing it. And that's not why they're arresting you. They're arresting you because you're breaking the law in Egypt, which is supposed to not matter. And because even what you're saying now, right now, is nefarious, what you're saying. You're trying to put responsibility on Egypt for what Egypt isn't responsible for, rather than putting it on Israel. Really, these are diabolical people.
It's been said.
I don't care about your, like I said this in the chat and I've said it many times. I don't recognize your so-called compassion, your so-called caring for the Palestinians. You don't really care. That means there's some other reason behind your so-called activism, and it's either that you have a psychological problem, an emotional problem, or you're an agent.